XIII-2, the story so far.
Poo-poo! We have to figure out the labyrinth.
You'll be sure to arrive in the future you want. This must be the eclipse.
You know what this is?
Hey everyone, Tony here from the ClassicLeague.com gaming and electronic podcast, and today I'm going to be reviewing Final Fantasy XIII Part 2 from Square Enix. Now, the story of this game is obviously a direct sequel for Final Fantasy XIII. I actually didn't get around to playing 13, so I wondered how I'd be able to pick up on the story, and Final Fantasy XIII 2 does a great job of helping with this. If you didn't get around to playing 13, you can still pick this one up because they actually offer a trainer where you can recap the story of Final Fantasy XIII chapter by chapter, and the opening cinematics also help as well. And so I really had no problem understanding what the main crux of this game was going to be. Lightning, the main character from Final Fantasy XIII, is stuck in the future. She sends a character named Noel back through time to contact her sister Sarah, and Sarah is the main character of Final Fantasy XIII Part 2. Now, Noel and Sarah set off on a journey through time to find Lightning, and I was actually really intrigued by that concept of the story, and it was really enough to keep me hooked. I'm actually over 20 hours in, and I'm committed to finish the game because I really like the premise of that story, kind of traveling through time. The only problem is I felt like the developers were kind of forcing the game to look and feel less linear than 13, which I know is a big complaint from a lot of hardcore fans, is that 13 was a little bit too linear. And because they were trying to go so much in the opposite direction, it felt like the game and the story got really confusing. Although the main premise is always there, it just feels confusing most of the time, and I felt like they tried to fit a little bit too much freedom into the storyline. Let's move on to something else and talk graphics. The graphics are absolutely stunning. There's very little to mention on the negative side when graphics come along. Now, there are some very stunning visuals, especially when they're in motion. I mean, it's amazing how the real live-action turn-based battles and how beautiful the graphics look. With very little bits of slowdown every once in a while, there's really nothing to complain about with graphics. Final Fantasy XIII-2 is definitely a visual treat. Now, the music was an interesting story for me because although I always remember the Final Fantasy series having a strong musical composition, XIII-2 definitely takes it to an incredible level. The music's very strong and powerful, and since I'm kind of newer to the modern day Final Fantasy series, being a retro gamer and playing a lot of the older ones, this was all kind of new to me because I was really taken back at how powerful and strong the music was. It's always happening and it's always noticeable. But to be honest, as I played more, I became more impressed with how much it added to the game. I know some people complain about it, some people love it, but I really began to like how the music transitioned on the type of world you were in and just kind of became part of the game and you kind of get lost into it. At least for me, that's something I really enjoyed. The controls of the game, there's not really a lot to talk about there. It works pretty well in the third-person exploration mode. It's more of a turn-based live-action battle. Now, there are some quick-time events, and believe it or not, I know quick-time events can really ruin some games, but I really enjoyed them because they're mixed really well into the turn-based live-action battles. And so it was really cool that they added that element, and I really enjoyed the controls for this game. The gameplay, obviously, the biggest part of the game is how well does it play. And to be honest, the battle system is quite impressive and very addicting. I'm definitely hooked on the battle system. There's an easy and normal battle mode, and I found myself playing on easy a lot just because I've kind of been away from a lot of the modern day versions of Final Fantasy. I didn't really play much after 10 came out. So I really wanted to stay on easy mode, thinking I'd kind of coast through some of it, but to be honest, it's still very challenging, but it keeps me coming back for more. I want to get better at these battles. And even though the battles are way more inclusive of live action and cinematic gameplay, you still at the very core have that turn-based gameplay. You use a series of what the game calls paradigm shifts to strategically enter battle and choose different formations, and really selecting the proper shift is the key to defeating some of the challenging bosses and enemies in the game. And one of the cool things in 13.2 is you can also add a monster to your party as a third member, and these things get very impressive. The customizable options are endless with the monsters. They even carry a feral link meter, which when it builds up and gets to its full synchronization allows you to unleash a series of chain attacks, and it can be very helpful to defeating challenging enemies. The sheer customization is absolutely impressive in the gameplay. Luckily, the menu is easy to understand. There's a Crystarium area where you can upgrade your party members, and even the monsters can be upgraded and changed. And I was just very also appreciative of how they geared this game to people like me who are kind of re-entering the series after some time off from its retro roots. And so I was appreciative of the optimization button, which allows you to equip your character with the best items from your inventory with either a focus on magic, power, or defense. The gameplay is very addicting, and it kept me coming back for more, and I can't wait to finish the game. In conclusion, any Final Fantasy game is going to be a challenge to review because of the sheer depth of all the different facets of the game, and 13.2 is no different. I really like Final Fantasy XIII Part 2, and I recommend it as one for RPG fans to pick up. Even if you're like me and didn't get into 13 or never pick it up, I really think you'll like Final Fantasy XIII Part 2. And I'm sure there's going to be hardcore fans who might be very critical of the latest entries into the series. And to be honest, they have a right to be. I know that if you've been a hardcore fan, you're going to notice the slight differences. But for those of us who are in the mood for a great RPG, this should not detract you from picking it up. My only real complaint is how they make the story mode a bit more confusing than it needs to be. But overall, I really like this game. Thank you so much for watching Classic Elite Reviews. Make sure you listen to our podcast and subscribe to our channel today.